Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we have the new Tier 9 Premium Pan-American Battleship, the Valparaiso, in port to review for you guys today. This ship is a Vanguard, oddly enough, turned into a secondary brawling battleship. A very interesting ship to do that to, because as you can see, even with the new secondary turrets on the ship, there's still only 4 secondary turrets per side. So not really a overwhelming amount of secondary guns there, but Wargaming has certainly done something with this ship, and we will be discussing that in this video. So yes, this is a ship that I was very interested in. I'm not a really big fan of the way Wargaming chose to release her. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. But many of you are, of course, probably very interested to see just how good this ship is. So we're going to take a look at her today, discuss her stats and features, and then head into the game for the review of the ship. But before we go any further, I have to, of course, give an absolutely massive shout out to the channel's Patreon supporters. I am not a CC, so I do not get any of these ships that you see on the channel to review for free. We have to purchase them using the very generous funds donated by the channel's Patreon supporters, which is also the best place to support the channel, besides, of course, just watching the streams and videos. Link to that is in the description down below. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Valparaiso here. So, I have played this ship, as I couldn't help myself before we sat down to record this portion of the review, so that's why I got some XP on her as well. And I've got the same commander, module, and flags equipped that I used in the review section of the video. So let's go ahead and take a look at her, shall we? So of course it is a Vanguard, as you can tell, and also as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot that has been changed between this ship and the Vanguard as far as like the armor goes. I mean, you get 32mm bow, you get the 64mm strip, 212mm strip here, 356mm belt armor. The Citadel is exposed right there. And we go take a look at the Vanguard, and I'm sorry, at the Valparaiso, and it's more of the same. 32mm bow, 64mm belt, 212mm strip there with a 310mm section on top. Is that present on the Vanguard? Probably so. Yeah. See, so it's the same armor as the Vanguard, which, if you've played the Vanguard, you know, it's not the best armor in the world to go brawling in. You do have 40mm deck, but I mean, that's really all that she's got going to maybe, and I'm pretty sure that's the same as the Vanguard too. Oh, nope. She has the 32mm deck. Alright, so you get a 40mm deck. No, this is the Valparaiso. My god. No, sorry, this is the Vanguard. Ooh, man, reading is hard for me. But yeah, 32mm deck on the Vanguard, and then on the Valparaiso, it's 40, so it's, you know, slightly improved deck armor. Of course, the Valparaiso is a tier 9, not a tier 8, so that's probably to help with the HE spam. But as far as I can tell, that's about it. And if you take a look at the Citadel, again, it's pretty much the same, which is exposed at the waterline. Then just hopping back over to the Vanguard so you guys can see. Yep, it's the same Citadel. So, yeah. Again, doesn't seem to be that impressive. Alright, again, I skipped over the economy. It is a tier 9 premium ship, so you do get the tier 9 premium economy baked into the ship on top of the bonus package that you get with the ship, which is the 10% buff to your credits, 100% buff to your various XPs. These are the economic bonuses I was running on the ship during the review as well. Alright, survivability, 75,200 hit points with the flag. So that is, again, same as Vanguard, you know, the 5% buff to your HP, and just to prove it to you, goodbye flag. Sorry, that's the wrong flag. Goodbye flag, 71,600. Vanguard, 71,700. Actually has less HP than Vanguard. That's what? You see, Vanguard doesn't have the flag on either, but with the flag on, 75,300 on the Vanguard, and then on the Valparaiso, 75,200. That's funny. Okay. 25% torpedo damage reduction. Alright, for your main battery guns, you still have those 15-inch British guns. Actually, Warships, well, the Warships turrets. But anyway, with the 15-inch guns, you get a 25-second base reload time, a 180 time of 30 seconds, a maximum dispersion of 244 meters, and a maximum range of 18.7 kilometers. And the AP shells do a maximum damage of 12,500 and have an initial velocity of 804 meters a second. Now, as you might notice, there is no HE on this ship. For the main battery guns, at least. You might be thinking, well, Sealor, that's crazy. 15-inch guns, only 8 15-inch guns at Tier 9 and no HE? That's right, there's no HE. But the AP shells do have improved ricochet angles. So they'll bite more often than not when compared to standard 15-inch shells of this tier. And they only have a 1.7 Sigma, which is not great. But again, it's meant to be a brawler, so this is all about them secondary guns, right? Well, you get 16 127mm secondary guns. These are in the American dual 5-inch turrets with a reload time of 2 seconds with a secondary build on it. So I have all of the secondary modules and skills on my commander right now, and that's what you'll get them down to 2 seconds. So the maximum range of 12 kilometers, again, with all of the commander skills and modules slapped on. So 2-second reload time, 12-kilometer range, that's pretty good at Tier 9, but they are still, at the end of the day, 127mm guns, which means they can only pin 21mm of armor, which means at Tier 9, there's not a whole lot that you can really bully in terms of pins with these shells. So like destroyers and some light cruisers, but outside of that, not really much else. Now, you do have a 9% fire chance per shell, which is pretty good with secondary guns that reload this fast and with this range, and these secondary guns do have improved accuracy. So, that definitely helps. More on that in the review section. You do get 2 charges of the ASW Airstrike. That is my Discord and not yours. Apologies, I thought I muted everything. You do have an AA defense rating of 88. In practice, I found that it is nothing really to write home about at all, really. So, yeah, definitely not an AA barge. But if you're wondering, you have 11 of the single-mounted 40mm guns, Bofors, and then you have the dual-mounted 40mm guns. You get 1 of those to be exact. 10 of the dual-mounted 76mm AA guns, and then the secondary guns, the 16 127mm secondary guns, are dual-purpose with a range of 6 kilometers. Alright, maneuverability. With the speed flag, the Valparaiso goes 31.5 knots. She has a turning circle radius of 850 meters and a rudder shift time of 9.7 seconds. So you still have that Vanguard rudder shift time, so that is quite good. And a concealment with the commander skill in the module of 12.6 kilometers, which is just a little bit shy of your secondary gun range. So that's pretty darn good. Now, in her box of consumables, you might have noticed earlier, yes, that is a 7 next to her hill. And she has, let me tell you boys, she has quite the hill. So she has her own unique specialized repair teams that regenerate 2,368 HP per second for 8.8 seconds. I can imagine this is like just taking fentanyl straight to the veins with how nutty these heals are. And what's made even better, damage real quick, 16.5 second runtime with that, with the flags and such, is her consumable operational readiness, her magic button, her F button. Once you have this bar filled up and you pop it, you have a 95% buff to the cooldown time of all of your consumables. So that means, essentially, with the specialized repair team, you have like an 8-second cooldown time on that repair team. And then on the damage con, you have, again, like a 7 or 8-second cooldown time on that damage con. I don't know why it took me so long to say damage con, but yeah, this is nuts. And the way you activate this is you get an 8% addition to your F key every single secondary shell hit. So it doesn't really take a whole lot of secondary shells to get this active. I mean, it takes what? 11, 12 shell hits. And then if you do get a kill, it just instantly fills up. So, yeah, this is not a hard F button to fill up at all. So that's a little nuts, and we'll talk about that again in the review section. But since we're here, let's go over my commander module build. Naturally, full secondary build, as your magic F button is tied to your secondaries. So I went with our auxiliary armaments mod 1, which increases the survivability of our secondary guns by 100%. Same with the AA mounts. Then Damage Con Mod 1, because at the end of the day, this is a Vanguard hull at Tier 9. So fires and floods, they suck, and this reduces the chance of fires occurring by 5% and floods by 3%. Then naturally, of course, Secondary Battery Mod 1 for the increased secondary battery firing range, and the buff to the dispersion, both 20%. And then Damage Con Mod 2, because once again, fires and flooding suck. This reduces their runtime by 15%, so the less time those fires and floods are on your ship, the less damage you are taking. And then naturally, Consumables System Mod 1, because, well, we can get our consummate down to just over our secondary battery gun range, making it easier to sneak up on our enemies. So this reduces the ship's detectability range by 10%. Also quite useful when you want to disengage. And once again, considering this is a Tier 8 ship up to Tier 9, we want to be able to disengage when we can, right? And then lastly, I took Auxiliary Armaments Mod 2. This reduces the reload time of our secondary guns by 20%, and also buffs our AA damage and the damage from the flak by 15%, and gives us 2 more flak bursts when we use DFAA, which the ship doesn't have, so it is pointless there, but we're mainly using it for the 20% buff to our secondary battery reload time, to where we have that flat 2-second reload time on our secondary guns now. Alright, looking at our commander build, I did slap Joachim on the Valparaiso, because the man does get a buff to the secondary and main battery reload time once he hits 175 main and secondary battery shell hits, which is quite easy to do with the Valparaiso. A 22.5% buff to the reload time of those secondary guns, guys. Again, it's crazy. I've got some things to tell you on the reviews in the review section. But anyway, let's go over his build. So, preventive maintenance, this gives us a 30% buff to the chance of our modules becoming incapacitated, and a 15% buff to the secondary and the AA mount survivability. Again, a lot of this ship's playability rests in her secondary guns, so we want them staying alive for as long as possible. And we've taken Grease the Gears, since the Valparaiso is a maneuverable battleship. We want these turrets to be able to keep up with us, and this helps the turrets do that by giving them a 20% buff to their 180 time. Then actually, of course, we took long-range secondary battery shells to give us another 20% buff to our secondary battery range, on top of Adrenaline Rush, which gives us a 0.2% buff to our reload time of all of our armaments for every 1% of HP that we lose. And on a ship like the Valparaiso, where you have the super heal to abused Adrenaline Rush, you want to use it, alright? And then, of course, manual secondary battery aiming. This gives us the improved accuracy to our secondary guns over 45 seconds. Once we select a target, the secondaries get an instant 10% buff to the reload time and to the... Well, I'm sorry, this is before you even select it. You get a 10% buff to the reload time, 10% buff to the dispersion. Once you have selected a ship over 45 seconds, your secondaries will gradually get a 50% buff to the dispersion over those 45 seconds. So, makes your secondary guns more accurate. And then we took Emergency Repair Expert, so we have an additional charge of our heal and a 10% buff to the runtime of our heal and to our damage con as well. The longer your heal, the longer your damage con is running, the more HP you will get when the heal is running, and the longer fires and floodings cannot be set on your ship. And then lastly, of course, Consummate Expert to give us another 10% buff to the consummate of the Valparaiso, giving us that nice 12.6 kilometer concealment. Alright, so that is the Valparaiso. That is my build on the Valparaiso. I'll go ahead and meet you guys over in the gameplay commentary for the review. Alright guys, voiceover Sealord here. The Valparaiso, wow, what a surprise. Who knew that taking a Vanguard, giving it some American secondary guns, and then just gimmicking the hell out of it would make it such a crazy secondary battleship. I don't think many saw this coming. You can go back and look at like the post when the Valparaiso was announced. Most were like, dude, what are you doing, Wargaming? This is like the worst hull in the game to make into a brawling battleship. But I guess when you do give it, fentanyl level heals, that can happen. So, man, the games I had tonight were not overly great. Many of them ended within like 6 or 7 minutes. The one match you are watching is the one that went for a while longer. This was a really good match in terms of like, how the match progressed and such. But you do definitely get to see how durable the Valparaiso is in the background footage, and how crazy your secondaries can get when you got max adrenaline rush going. If you have Joaquin, you have his buff going as well. The thing's absolutely nuts. So Valparaiso, it's truly unlike any other brawler in the game, for the simple fact that unlike most every other ship in the game, you can just walk at the enemy ships because you have a heal that comes off of cooldown when you have the combat skills going in, again, 6 seconds. Same with the damage con. You basically don't have a cooldown on your damage con or your heal when you have your combat instructions active. It's pretty much instant. 5-6 seconds in game depending upon your exact commander build. So you can be popping those essentially constantly, which is why the thing has 7 of these super heals. So there's very few ships in the game that can whittle you down in that time, as long as you have a sizable chunk of HP remaining, right? That's obviously a different situation if you're going at them with only 10k HP, but from full health, you can pretty much walk at whatever you want to walk at, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it, short of absolutely dogpiling you with like 4 other ships hard focusing you down, or with something like a torpedo destroyer popping up and then shoving their entire torp rack into your side. Then yeah, that's probably a situation that can stop you. But in most situations, you can just walk at the enemy ships, and again, not a whole lot they can do about it, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, the caveat to that is that, of course, your secondaries have to be firing. You have to be getting those secondary hits to fill up your combat instruction bar to where you can basically just be slapping F constantly. And from within secondary range, that's not hard to do at all. And in fact, I did it several times throughout the night, and it's great. You just feel like you're unstoppable, because you almost are in a lot of cases. But the other problem is that, well, like I mentioned in port, your secondaries are the 127 millimeter secondary American secondary guns. Not a lot of pin there. You're doing 21 millimeters of pin without IFHE. If you choose to take IFHE, it gets up to like 27 millimeters, which at tier 9 is not overly great. You're really only pinning battle cruiser bow and stern, and it does toss a fair few other cruisers into your penetration range, but now you've got like a 4.5% fire chance, and yeah, and you still only have 15-inch main battery guns. Now, yes, they do have the improved ricochet angles, so they most certainly do have that going for them, which definitely makes them usable at this tier, but they're still only 15-inch guns at tier 9. In terms of overmatch, you're not really getting to overmatch a whole lot. Again, the occasional light cruiser, not so well armored heavy cruiser here and there. But, and keep in mind they have 1.7 Sigma. And only an 18.8, 18.9 kilometer main battery gun range, which is also not great by tier 9 standards. So, sure, when you're close in and walking toward an enemy ship, your secondaries are going, you have your combat instructions ready to go, it is quite a scary ship to go up against, but it definitely has its drawbacks. It's really, really fun. It's really fun for sure. When you do have, 1 or 2 ships on your flank, you can very much walk at them. Again, short of them torpedoing you from point-blank range, because, again, you still have the Vanguard rudder shift time on top of all this, too. So if the torpedoes are on their way, you really shouldn't have a problem dodging most of them at least, right? If not outright, dodging all of them with that excellent rudder shift time. So it's a very fun ship, and that rudder too comes in assistance when you are, doing point blank drive-bys, because you can whip your ship around so much, keep your keep your broadside angled enough to where, you can bounce their shells, but you can still, get your guns off of them. So that definitely does help as well. Now, like I've said, it's essentially a Vanguard underneath, outside the secondaries being reached. Not essentially, it is a Vanguard underneath, except with the improved deck armor. So you still have the god-awful turret angles. If you don't know, Vanguard's rear turrets are just... The angles are abysmal. So you have to show a lot of broadside in order to get those guns on target, which is kind of the Vanguard's thing, right? It's got the quick rudder shift time, so you can get your guns on target and then, snap back to being steeply enough angled where they can't get on target. But the Valparaiso... you don't have guns that are accurate as Vanguards, so, And trying to do that from close range, too, isn't really overly great. And what's really funny, too, is that not only do the rear turrets have terrible angles, the rear secondary battery turrets do as well. So to get your, half of your secondary guns on target, you have to show a lot of broadside in the Valparaiso. And, again, you have Vanguard armor, so there's plenty of instances where you can get absolutely clamped by the enemy team. So you definitely want to keep that in mind as you're playing the Valparaiso. So it is a really fun, really great mid-range ship, brawler, however you want to describe it. Definitely best played from secondary range, because obviously that's where that F button is going to come into play here. And keep in mind, you have 7 of these hills if you take Superintendent. So 7 hills. Even with the cooldown time, it takes a minute to chew through all those hills. So there is a lot of damage that this thing can take before it goes down, if you're within secondary range. Obviously, the ship is terrible outside of that secondary range. You have 1.7 Sigma, you have 15-inch guns, yes, with the improved ricochet angles, but they're still 15-inch guns at tier 9. So outside of secondary range, you're just kind of hoping you land a shell or two on the enemy ship if they're within your main battery gun range, which a lot of times they won't be. So it is definitely a living at secondary range, absolutely vibing there, and just pure suffering outside of that range. So it's great for that, but keep in mind, for a large part of high tier games, it's not really that great. But man, when you're in secondary range, oh my god, this thing is crazy. Now, big question, is it worth it? Well, in order to get the Valparaiso, you have 2 options. One, you can buy it in a commander bundle. Sorry, not a commander bundle. I wish it was in a commander bundle. In an admiral bundle for the whopping low price of $147.81. Now, it comes, of course, with a bunch of signal flags, credits, the Valparaiso flag, a 10-point commander, and some other goodies. Like, you're getting $147 worth of stuff, but you're paying $147. The second way you can acquire it is in the Durham containers, which are the containers within containers within containers. It's in the second layer, which is, I believe, the black Durham containers. So you have to gamble with the red containers to get a black container, and then hopefully you roll a Valparaiso out of that. So you gotta get real lucky with your RNG in order to acquire the ship that way. So, naturally, you're stuck paying a bunch of money to Wargaming either way. You might get lucky with the Durham containers. You might get it on like the first or second container. If you do, I'm very happy for you. It's a fun ship if you like to brawl. Or you're going to be stuck forking out $147 and change. Is it worth $147 and change? Not really. It's a pixel item, so like, it's not something you can sell down the road later on to get a little bit of your money back. So there's that. If this was like a coal ship, oh yeah, this would be super easy. Actually, if this was like on normally priced tier 9, you just buy for like $70, I'd say, yeah, sure, it's a normally priced tier 9. Yes, I know $70 for tier 9 ships, that is an expensive price tag, but like that is the standard price for a tier 9 premium ship in this game, right? It's not inflated like these captain bundles are. These admiral bundles are, where you're paying, double what you normally pay for a tier 9 ship. So if it's normal price, or if it's like a coal ship or a resource ship, hell, this is a steel ship, I'd still say, oh yeah, it's definitely worth picking up. But for the price, I cannot recommend spending this much money on this ship right now. Overall, if you just want like a rating for the ship, I give this ship an 8 out of 10. It's a really fun ship. The secondary guns are great. The F button gimmick definitely encourages, close range brawling playstyle, and I really appreciate that they're trying to, incorporate more of that into the game, especially how passive the higher tier meta has gotten. And it's just insane that they're releasing ships like this now, and I'm sure, it's going to be out for now, and then it's going to disappear for 6 months, then return to the game. Hopefully then at a more normal price. That seems to be what they're doing with these premium ships now, so I'd highly encourage you to wait for it to come back to the game in a normal price in the premium shop, or for resources in the armory. We don't know what's happening with it yet, but that's what I would encourage you guys to do. It's great, but it's not worth dropping almost $200 on right now. So if you guys enjoyed my review of the Valparaiso, if you did, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and all of that jazz. I hope to catch you guys in the next one.